Hello and welcome to the Illinois Functional Practitioner Society. I'm John Fischetti, the orthomolecular representative for the western suburbs of Chicago. And along with my counterparts, Matt Conforti in the Chicago territory and Kellen Weiss in the southern and central Illinois, we welcome you to this group that we compiled for really one reason, and that's to bring our practitioners together where they can provide resources either for each other or we can be the source of resources to really help you navigate the waters. Now, this group was meant to be essentially born before this happened, and we had a lot of great ideas about how to connect everyone, but obviously with the times changing, I see a need for this group to be even more prevalent. So with that being said, what are our outcomes? What are we looking for? And I've been speaking with a lot of you individually and seeing what you're interested in taking away from this group. And a lot of it has to be networking, 1. 2, finding resources in new ways and to be innovative in your practice, which obviously communicating with other practitioners that have already implemented successful strategies. This is a great place to be able to communicate with them, but also to figure out what's going on locally. Obviously in Illinois, we're going to have a little bit different, if you will, laws, regulations, things like that. Now, we won't claim to have those answers, but you as practitioners obviously will, and we'll be getting that from your team of resources. And so helping along new practitioners coming into this space, but also being a voice for your practitioners and your network, I think will be really beneficial to you all. Now, what can we do our side as admin and as your representatives? Well, 1, especially right now, find a way to help you increase your practice resiliency. Now, think about that for a second. Often we talk about increasing your patient's disease resiliency, the ability to have enough metabolic reserves and to minimize stress and all the other external and internal factors that could make their immune system susceptible to essentially a virus or a disease. Now, right now, with your practice, you can see a lot has changed quickly, especially in Illinois. Now that we know that we're going to be extended for this stay at home for another month, some of you are able to see patients in person on a limited basis, and obviously are taking the precautions needed to make sure everyone is safe in those environments. Some of you are doing phone consults, and others have ventured into telehealth, whether it be something you've already been doing, or it might be a new avenue. I want to, and Kellen and Matt want to, help you guys learn how to navigate these waters and really make them successful. I can tell you right now, something that I've seen across my territory, and I would imagine this is the same across Matt and Kellen's, but we've seen about a 40 to 60% drop rate in appointments. 40 to 60% drop rate in appointments. Some of you, I would imagine a lot of you probably fall into that same category from the conversations I've been having, but I have seen a few practices that have minimized that to 20% or less. And that should be your goal, and we want to help you figure out how to get there. One of the ways that we've talked about, obviously, is switching your practice to a hybrid system. So obviously most of you do in-person visits, but what can we do to help merge that with now being forced into this platform of telemedicine? And how can we do that successfully? Now, when we think of telemedicine, there's 3 aspects that I like to break it down into that I've seen practices work very successfully in. And those are the ones that have minimized that patient appointment drop rate to 20% or less. So the first is doing simple consults. Basically your everyday appointments minus the things that you would do obviously in person. So if you're doing manual manipulation, obviously we have a barrier here where we have to find an alternative revenue generator. If you're doing IV therapy, again, we need to find an alternative. And I want to help you understand what those are. But if you're only doing telemedicine to continue your consults, most likely there's going to be quite a few patients out of that, let's say 40 to 60% of your patients that have disappeared from your schedule that are not going to transition well into that. So we need to figure out ways to bring them back. And if a one-on-one consult like this is something that they don't see that much of a benefit, maybe because they were really benefiting from those in-person services like manual manipulation, IV therapy, etc. What else can we do? So the second is group visits. And now I know EvoMed, and we posted the webinar, has a lot of quality content about how to implement these group visits. And for some of you, I know right now, your schedules are so swamped that you're seeing consult after consult after consult. And in some, I've actually even seen an increase in new patients where you have the opposite effect. Your schedule is overbearing. And for others, it's very small. What group setting does is it allows you to see multiple people at one point in time. It makes it cost efficient for the patient temporarily. And as you know, there's a lot of jobs that have been lost and a lot of people that unfortunately are putting their health on a back burner because they have a lot of other people in their household they need to be financially stable for. So bringing them into a group setting allows them a cost efficient way to still receive care from their practitioner. And I also want to reiterate how easy this is once you make the patient understand what this setting looks like. So right now, I'm sure you're guilty of it too. I'm the same way. My friends, my family, neighbors even, we have these Zoom house party apps, that different virtual mediums that we're sitting down and we're meeting with a lot of different people at a lot of different times. It's kind of funny, my weekend schedule has now been essentially become busier because I'm doing virtual meetings with my family. On my fiance's side, Lauren's family, with my family, with friends, with her friends, with my friends, with mutual friends. So we've become quite busy on the weekends. My point being is that your patients are already participating in these groups. They're just not doing it with you in a clinical setting. So what I would encourage you to offer to them is bring them in and bring their family in and make it a smaller fee across the family, but that way you can re-engage with that patient rather than having them sit at home and you losing that patient practitioner to patient relationship. Bring them in and explain to them what we can benefit from, and we can talk a little bit more about that, or Matt and Kellen can elaborate on what that means. The third is webinars. Now, I think a big barrier for practitioners doing webinars is often content. They don't have the content. They don't want to take time to build the content, a PowerPoint presentation, etc. You don't need a big PowerPoint presentation. However, if you would like one, myself, Matt, and Kellen have a lot of resources available to you to be able to provide that front work so you can take it and plug it and play it and make it your own. Allow us to be a resource of those resources for you. Also, another aspect is everyone thinks they have to be an expert. They have to be perfect. I want to give you an example. I have a counterpart in California, and he was telling me about a practice that he suggested they start doing these webinars, these weekly updates. If you follow a lot of practitioners on social media, whether that be for good or bad, I know everyone has their own views about social media, I do as well. A lot of them are doing weekly updates. Why? Because as practitioners, you are the voice of reason, the voice of calmness in your area. And so be that voice. Allow people to hear you. I think you're going to find a lot of these essentially roles that you can become when it becomes transitioning to a telemedicine hybrid system are actually sustainable after this will be over. I think that's the third barrier. A lot of you are thinking, I'll just kind of ride this wave out and then we'll get everyone back in-house and we'll be good to go. Well, now is the time to actually improve your practice. Take telemedicine and make it an option for you. So when a patient says, hey, doc, I can't come in today, you know what, I feel like I have a fever and I don't want to get you sick. Great, stay at home, but let's keep your appointment. We'll hop on telemedicine and we'll do a consult and we'll still talk about your nutrition. We'll still talk about your healthy movement. I can demonstrate healthy movement for you. We can talk about your stress and how your current plan of practice is going and continue. Getting a little bit off track, but let me come back to that third aspect, which is webinars. In California, this practice is doing a weekly update, one day, 5 minutes or so, where they hop on and they open this webinar up. So you could do a Facebook Live or some other medium. We could talk about what's out there for you, but it's very simple, very easy to use. You don't have to be very tech savvy. You just hop on the camera like I am right now, and you talk about a particular topic. That could be as simple as finding an article and reading it and just talking about what the article says, presenting that information to your patients. And then you can have an interactive where they actually can be watching with you and ask you questions so they can do a Q&A and be transparent. The more you know, great, but if you don't know, there's a lot of uncertainty right now, so express that to your patients. The goal here is, and what that practice in California has showcased is they went from, I think, 10 viewers the first time around to now 500. Why is that? People are getting value out of these. And instead of it being someone up on TV or someone in the Twitter space or Facebook or some other social media aspect, it's a practitioner in their area. And their patients are pulling in their family members. They're pulling in their friends, their neighbors. They're saying, my doctor says this. That sentence right there is very powerful. My doctor says this. People listen. They want to know. They want to understand what this practitioner has to say. And now they don't just have to hear it through the telephone effect, through someone else saying what they heard and someone else and so on and so forth. They can actually hear it directly from you. And your patients are going to be a big advocate for that. And use them. Ask them to be an advocate for you, to bring in others. Not only will that open your expertise in your community for this short term, but it's going to expand your horizon and your influence long after this is over. And it can be something that, again, is sustainable, that you can continue to do long after this is done. So our goal is to help you find a way to increase your practice resiliency. You're going to have peers in this group that we're going to encourage you guys to share best practices and utilize myself, utilize Matt, utilize Kellen, as we are communicating with each and every one of you on a daily basis and taking little bits and pieces of what you're all saying works and trying to figure out for each particular practice that we interact with on an individual basis, how to implement those in your practice. At the end of the day, you know your business better than we do, but we get to see a broader scope and we get to bring those down to your practice and present them to you and allow you to figure out where the puzzle pieces fit. I appreciate you listening to me and letting me bend your virtual ear. Welcome to the Illinois Functional Practitioner Society. Please feel free to reach out to myself, Matt, or Kellen, and have a wonderful and happy Friday. Stay safe. Be well.